Greetings and welcome to Georgian Crossroads. This is Byrne Power, coming to you on a beautiful fall day here in Tbilisi, Georgia. There is someone playing the piano sometimes upstairs, and I hear a little bit of work going on outside. If they creep into the background, consider that free extra production value. You were there on the streets of Tbilisi, in the apartments of Tbilisi. Today, what we would like to do is we would like to give you what's called an iceberg. Now, the iceberg is this meme that's going around. It shows like a kind of a side view of an iceberg, and only the little part is in the above the water, and then it shows you further and further and further down. I am putting one up right now for you to look at. And today what we're going to look at is the Georgian Iceberg. Now, the Georgian Iceberg this is not for Georgians. This is for people who aren't Georgians, although I think Georgians will find it kind of interesting. This is what people in the rest of the world think about Georgia, versus the more you know about Georgia, the deeper the iceberg gets. So we're going to start with just the little part on the top. Now, if you see these done for, a certain genre of movies, horror films or something, if you see them done for a certain style of rock music, I just saw someone do one for France, and I looked at it, and one of the things he did immediately was in the part above the waterline, he talked about the 40% rule for French music being played on the radio. And I would go like, nobody knows that who's coming to France. That is not above the water. That is something you only find out it's maybe 2 or 3 tiers down. I think we've got about 5, maybe 6 tiers here. So we're going to start off with the tier that's at the top. It's very small, as you'll see. This is what the world thinks of Georgia. They don't even know Sakartvelo. All they know is Georgia exists. Somewhere out there's a place called Georgia. That's not a U.S. state. That's the second thing. And the third thing is something about the Caucasus Mountains. Now, the truth is, I have an American friend coming here in a couple of weeks. He doesn't know anything about the Caucasus, and he's a mountain climber. You would assume mountain climbers know about mountains around the world, but no. So the 3 main things that people would know that are on the top surface, I suppose one could add wine here, but I'm saying for the person who's not paying attention, who's just like, what's Georgia? They don't know much apart from the fact it's not the U.S. state, and it's related to the Caucasus Mountains somehow. Now we're getting to the layer right near the top of the waterline. If you're going to be a tourist here, you're going to start learning some of these things. If you're going to visit here, you're going to start learning some of these things. One is Tbilisi is the capital. Another is wine. Wine is really important here. If you get really into that, they might realize that wine was actually first fermented here, but that might be another level down. Georgian food. Maybe they've heard of khachapuri. Maybe they've heard of khinkali. Maybe they know a little of tamale. But, chances are they don't either. But that's why it's one level down. Supras, you would hear about this, the traditional ritual Georgian meal, which is sometimes done very precisely and other times very sloppily, but always enjoyably. They might know that something about Georgian folk music and dance, I would hope, but again, below the waterline. The person more historically astute would realize this used to be part of the Soviet Union. Also, Georgia is not Russia. This should be on the top, But a lot of people, I mean, I've been in America and I've told people I was moving to Georgia and they go, oh, you mean Russia? And I said, no, don't say that. Don't ever say that. That gets you in deep water, especially if you're here. And then there's Mr. Josip Jugashvili, otherwise known as Joseph Stalin. Who is unfortunately, the most well-known Georgian on earth. And we'll just ask for forgiveness. And then there's the one who might need to be is Georgi Balanchivadze, George Balanchine, the great dance choreographer. Now that's the stuff that's right on the top surface. Now we're going further down below. The Georgian language. This is, I think, a very important one. Once you start realizing, you're doing your tourism research and you realize the things I just told you. It's more than what's visible on top, and now you're starting to get a little idea of what's in the country. But now you realize not only is the Georgian language not connected to any other languages apart from a few other Georgian-related languages nearby, but the Georgian alphabet is psychedelic. It is just squiggles, wonderfully beautiful. I've never ran into a friend from another culture that didn't show them the alphabet, and they have two thoughts at once. How do you read that? And the other one is so beautiful. And it is. Then what do we have? The Georgian Orthodox Church, which is distinct from other Orthodox churches. It's its own autocephaly, but a very beautiful place to go and to go into the churches, to hear the music, to take part in some way if you can. Then there's maybe some filmmakers like Tengiz Abeladze. Now we're really starting to get, we're at the point now where the average person is going to need some scuba gear, but made some great films like Repentance, The Wishing Tree, The Plea, things like that. Shota Rustaveli, Night in Panther Skin. That is the great Georgian poetic epic written in the Middle Ages under the reign of what the Georgians called King Tamar, what people in other countries would probably call Queen Tamar. And if I say that, I'm going to get Georgians down below saying, no, it's king. And I have to explain, you don't understand. The most powerful monarch in Britain ever was Queen Elizabeth. She was subservient to no one. But they don't have that division of male-female. Probably the best word is not king or queen, but monarch. The monarch, Tamar. Then we would go to khinkali, the food, the little dumpling. Most people say this came through on the Chinese Silk Road, came from China, because that's where all these little dumpling kind of things started. But of course the Georgians have their unique variation, which includes making them big enough, usually, that you can turn them upside down, hold the little knot, and suck the succulent juices out of them. Then we have khachapuri, which is kind of like a pizza, but not really, but it's kind of like layers of circular bready dough with cheese in the middle, and there are 4 different species, including one that looks like a boat with a raw egg in the middle of it, but it's surrounded by hot cheese. Then we have Georgian architecture, and there's some very distinctive older styles, particularly once you come here. You can't help but notice all of the balconies and the ornamentation and stuff. Not on the modern buildings, unfortunately, and they really need to rectify that and get more buildings that fit in with Georgian history here. They may know Gergeti, particularly the famous church, all the way up at the top of that one. You see this image all the time, up in the near Stepan Saminda and Kazbegi in that area. Also, they may know Batumi, which is kind of like a cross between Las Vegas and Dubai on the ocean. I've never been there. I also have no desire to go there. Some people really like that sort of thing. A lot of people are attracted to the ocean, and that's fine. But it is more well known. If you know any artists at all, you will know Pirosmani. If you don't know any artists at all, you won't know anybody. The person who knows a little bit about art. But normally you'll see his giraffe or his pictures of the actress and these things, or super tables, and then you will know that that's Pirosmani. Sometime I have to do an episode just on Georgian art. And I mentioned Tamar, the most important figure during the golden age of Georgian culture. So we are now two levels. We've done the top of the iceberg, which is very, very small, sadly, for Georgia. But then we've gotten to the next two levels, which are what we could call the tourist level, and then the traveler level, the people who actually get here and wander around. But now we're one level below in the cultural level. And this, for me, is where Georgia comes alive. We did mention Tengiz Abaladze, who probably should be here. But some of the things here, Erisioni, friends of mine who are part of a music and dance ensemble. Purely dance ensemble is Sukrashvili, and I saw them performing earlier this year, a modernized version of Georgian traditional dance, quite worthwhile watching. Ballet is very important here. Nina Ananiashvili is the head, or has been, the artistic director of the ballet. And she has been a prima ballerina in New York City, I think at the New York City Ballet. Don't quote me on that offhand. But she runs the ballet at the Paliashvili Opera House. And that's well worth going, much cheaper than any ballet you would find in America, and quite high quality. There are other ballet troupes here as well. I have friends in the Georgi Alexidze Ballet Company, and Georgians just love dance. And so whether it's their traditional dance or their ballet and even modern ballet, it's a very important aspect of Georgian culture. And it's amazing how much the kids know about it. What else do we have? Orthodox art. So now we've gotten into the Orthodox Church a bit, but you start noticing the way the buildings are made. You start noticing the kind of bas-relief carvings, the icons and such. And all of this is very important to Georgian culture. It's the foundational level. We also have Georgian arts, which I probably should have put one below this here, because most people know absolutely nothing about Georgian arts except for Pirosmani. But there are other great names like Lado Gudiashvili, Elene Akvariani, David Kakabadze, and others. And it's a fascinating style. And to me, up until the postmodern period, after independence in 1991, is very distinct. Even during the Soviet era, there are simply things that are, once you start to recognize the things, kind of a combination of aspects of those three artists I just mentioned, Pirosmani, who influenced them, and the Georgian art, you start to get a very interesting view of the culture. And I think some of that is coming back. So, the postmodern stuff looks the same all over the world. Conceptual stuff, kind of hidden political messages or not so hidden political messages. Quite boring. I'm personally done with postmodern art. It had its moment. It's over. It was over probably about 30 years ago. And if you know more, you may know that Georgia is a poor country. And I'm not saying the people are not poor in their spirit. But financially, yes, they are poor. However, they do not enjoy the kind of poverty that, say, you find in certain corners of Latin America or Southeast Asia. And that is to say, for one thing, they always have food. Why do they always have food? Because this is one of the most fertile lands you can imagine for so many different kinds of crops, from citrus crops near the Black Sea to wine up in the plateau here to walnuts and pomegranates and grapes everywhere. So, what else have we got? Well, there's political uncertainty, and that's making the news. A lot of people will come to me with that, but here's what I hear from when people talk to me. What's going on in Georgia? They don't actually know anything. All they know is what they hear. Every now and then there might be a protest or something here that gets heated. That will make the news, which would give people the impression that every day people are being fire hosed on the street or something. That happened once or twice last year. That it's not something people here don't know which way the country is going. But I would say that's true for a lot of countries right now. It's just where we are. So I'll just say that and go on. Also, there are Georgian and Russian tensions, and that goes with the political uncertainty. So now we're dropping one level down. If you know these things, you're not simply a dilettante traveler. You are someone who's looked into the country more. You've read more about it. For instance, you'll know who Mikhail Saakashvili is. He was the former president who, under his watch, there was the Rose Revolution, which got rid of a lot of corruption, and then he tended to bring in a different kind of corruption later. Controversial figure. He's actually in prison right now. Georgian politics, I'm not even going to go there and try to understand it. I mean, I do, but I'm not going to try to do it. I'm not going to talk about it here. Edward Shevardnadze, again, another important recent political figure in the last 30, 40 years, was part of the Soviet Union, then became another president here, and his reign ended with the Rose Revolution. So, Lavrentiy Beria, if you know this, if you know that name, you know a bit about World War II, you know a bit about the Soviet Union, and you know that next to Stalin, he was one of the people you really, really, really didn't want to meet. Katie Malua, or her real name is probably Ketavan, who is actually pure-blood Georgian. Her parents left during the troubles of the 90s. She ended up in the UK and became a very famous singer. Then there's Vladimir Mayakovsky, who's very important in the theater world, and but he's obviously, the name is Russian, but he was born here. And you find this happening with other figures as well, one of whom we'll mention in a moment. You start to know the names of poets like Ilya Chavchavadze, on whose street I live. Vazhep Shavela, another great important poet of nature. And then there is Sergei Parajanov, who is claimed by three different people. 3 different countries. He's from Tbilisi, but he's pretty much full-blood Armenian, but he spent quite a bit of time in Ukraine. And he was a Soviet filmmaker, one of the most interesting of all of them, friend of Tarkovsky's. And there is a great museum of his in Yerevan, Armenia, over the border. But he is a very important figure related to Georgia as well. And his movies were set in Ukraine and in Georgia, and I think there's one in Armenia, but I know those two, the Georgia-Ukraine ones. What else? I mentioned the tamale sauce, which is this weird sour plum sauce. It's kind of like the Georgian equivalent of ketchup, but it's super sour. A very fascinating flavor. Then there's tarragon soda, or estragon. Some people in different European countries know it as estragon. Tarragon soda is like nuclear green, and it's kind of this weird spice it's used for, and somehow it's turned into a sweet soda. And I've never seen it anywhere else. It probably does exist maybe in countries near us or so, but fascinating drink. I don't drink it all the time because it's so sweet, but it is fascinating. And then there's the Saperavi grape. Now, Georgia has, I think, hundreds of grape varieties because they have been raising grapes for wine, I think, going back 8,000 years at least. So, they're the ones who, the evidence seems to show the sludge at the bottom of old ancient pottery shows Georgians. But the Sabaravi grape is the most commercially important grape here. Whether it's the best is really another issue, and I know friends, and I myself have other grapes that I really like. So we've kind of hit the bottom here. I've written a little something in Kartuli script for my Georgian friends. Just to let you know, if you get any further down below this section, you'll be reading Kartuli, which is Georgian. It's just a simple little video. I just wanted to give you the Georgian Iceberg, because I didn't feel like anybody else was going to do it. And I've got a couple others up my sleeve. I am going to do one for the Czech Republic, and another one for... should I do one for the United States? I think I should. But I also know France. The one I saw in France today was like, pointless. The guy, it was like, it was all mixed up. I mean, the French iceberg on top, Eiffel Tower, Mona Lisa, the Louvre, Paris. It's all the stuff without even thinking. When you say France, bam, all these things come to your mind. Then, and that's why, unfortunately, the poor Georgian iceberg doesn't have much that everyone recognizes. And there needs to be more. People need to understand what a fascinating culture and country Georgia is. So this is Byrne in Tbilisi, Georgia, saying thank you for listening. And you can subscribe to the channel. I need more subscribers. More than needing more subscribers, I need some donations as well. Times are tight everywhere. If you've got a little money, throw it in. If you want to make a continual payment, I will send you some Georgian music. I'll send you, 50 Georgian songs. If you give me $50, I'll send you 50 songs. If you give me $25, I can't divide it by 25, but we'll say anything up near $50, I'll send you 50 unusual Georgian songs. They're ready to go, so just do that. Okay. As the Georgians say, Droebit, which means temporarily, we'll just be gone from each other. Nakwamdis.